Today, I'm joined by Ben McKinney from Copy or Die. So thank you for joining me, Ben. As I was saying just before we hit record on this, I feel like I know you because I've been listening to your Barfield and McKinney audio stuff on LinkedIn. But welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dan. Great to be here.
So I want to start off because you sort of sent over in your bio, and what I'd heard in the sort of conversations before was that you own and run a window cleaning business. So let's just get that off the shelf now. Like why, what, how, what's the story there?
Blimey, how far back do you want to go? Do you want to go back to the very beginning?
Start with what's relevant.
So in my early 20s, I was a trainee journalist. That's what I always wanted to do. That was the kind of goal coming out of school. I didn't go to uni, but I managed to talk my way into a publishing company that had two very small local newspapers. That felt like the dream, really. Like, oh, this is great. I can get paid to write. I was a sports reporter. That was really what I wanted to do. So I was training there, but they didn't really treat me great. I was very young. I was only 19, so I'm not sure what I expected. Looking back now, I think perhaps I expected too much, but they never really put me through the training programs that they were going to. And I could see all my mates at that age were either off at uni or off on gap years and out at the weekends and having a great time. I got paid really badly and didn't have any free time whatsoever. So I quit that and decided that I wanted to be my own boss and that I would try and have a flexible kind of job where I could work a bit, earn okay, and then I still lived at home with my mum and dad at that point. So I'd be thinking, right, I'm going to go on holiday for a month. So I did a bit of traveling. And then I would come back and just pick up the window cleaning work and keep going. Yeah, and I thought that I would do it for a couple of years and then I'd get a real job. And then I think we've just ticked past 20 years of having the business now. So it's had a couple of different guises. It's in probably its third iteration.
Are you amassing a window cleaning empire?
I don't know whether I'd call it that, but it's paid for the mortgage. I've got two children. I've got a third on the way. Pays for those. Don't want to say it's easy money because it's hard work, but it's been a really consistent and stable form of income, and it's given me something to work on in terms of like building something. So now doing what I do, we take it right up to the present day. Kind of, I do what I do now. I'm started a copywriting agency with my friend Dave Harland. I've been a freelance copywriter for 7 years, and that ties in with my son is 7. So when my son was born, I wanted to work from home a couple of days a week, and I wanted to not be traveling all the time and doing really physical work.
Are you still out like cleaning windows then? Do you still go out with crews or whatever and go and do that?
Yeah, not so much, not quite so much anymore. So up until the pandemic, it was absolutely still the main form of income up to the pandemic and through the pandemic. But I was probably 3 to 4 days kind of out window cleaning. And then if I had any content, writing work or copywriting work, that would be a day a week. And the goal was to get it to 2 days a week. And then the goal was to split the week. So up until about a year ago, the week was split. I'd have Monday and Tuesday would be my writing days. Wednesday, kind of like a little floating day that would be, which business needs some attention. And then if I was going to be window cleaning, I'd be out on the tools on Thursday and Friday. But that's changed just recently now with Copy or Die kind of, I don't want to say taking off, but doing really well. We've kind of launched, and that initial sort of first 6 months has taken quite a lot of my time. So I'm down to probably about 4 or 5 days a month now, kind of where I actually physically go out and clean windows. And then I've got subcontractors and people I use regularly that can do a lot of the work for me. So nice little balance. Sounds crazy, but those days where I do actually physically go outside and work, it's not that I don't cherish them, but I quite enjoy them. It's nice, especially now that the weather's getting better. It's nice to be outside. And if I've got a problem, if I'm thinking of a solution to like a copy problem, I'll find the answer on one of those days when I'm out and about doing a monotonous job and sort of letting it work away in my subconscious. So although they say it sounds ridiculous because they're so different, but they do. The two businesses do kind of complement each other quite well. Yeah,
I got made redundant. So my story is actually quite similar to yours, minus sort of window cleaning bit. Like I did the journalism. I did a journalism degree, then went into and thought I was going to be a journalist, get paid to write for a living. I wanted to do sports as well. That's sort of where my sort of passion was. Found myself at a news desk at Aldershot News, kind of regurgitating press releases. I did a couple of days in court and just sort of found that it just wasn't. Again, like they didn't really have the training on capacity. They were really small, short of like shadowing other journalists or whatever. You didn't really pick up a huge amount. It would just be just some kind of editing feedback, but not a lot. And often things would just kind of, you'd ship them to the editor, and the next day it'd be printed in the news and it'd be like, was it any good? Like, I mean, you printed it, but so there was a bit of that. And then I transferred into corporate world and just became a sort of brand journalist, I guess, is sort of the best way I can sort of describe it. But now that I'm working from home and I'm working for myself or whatever, I really miss the camaraderie and like getting out and like the commute, even like just to get out and sort of switch off, sit on a train for an hour, which sounded awful at the time. And now that I'm sort of not stuck, but you're like within the office at home or whatever, like having that kind of outlet to switch off, downtime, kind of let the brain percolate through things, let things happen. Like I kind of really miss that. So I totally get what you're saying about that.
Yeah, I find that when you're in it, especially if you work from home like I do, and I'm guessing that you might do by the look of your background, it is hard to switch off. It is hard to find that separation between, right, an email comes in at 10 o'clock. I don't need to look at it right now and answer it, but I'm probably going to anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think, those kind of, that structure and that routine, when you have to build it in yourself and build in those little bits of downtime, it is difficult, especially if you're relatively new to it or starting out, because you want the work and you want to make a good go of it. You want to create, eventually that's probably your goal, to have that kind of downtime in it. But at the start you might just think, well, I've got to take everything that comes along. So I don't miss being sub-edited. That's probably, I mean, the closest is that you give your copy to a client and they mess it about and put it on their website. But I don't miss being sub-edited. I did a gig review for the Peterborough Evening Telegraph years and years ago for an indie band called the Cooper Temple Clause, who were kind of just making it sort of big. And I put my heart and soul into this review, and I think they gave me like quite a big word limit, and then when it came back it had been chopped into like less than 200 words of this tiny little thing in the paper with a massive picture. That was absolutely soul destroying. So
probably told all your friends about it as well, just like, I can't wait for this to go out. So like, talk to me about your sort of freelance journey then, because it sounds like you had, with the window cleaning business, like it sounds like you had that bit of a cushion and a buffer there to take your time, grow your client base, like, or did you not, or was it more pressing than that? Did you have a bit of time and space? And did the experiences of like growing your own business give you not necessarily a leg up, because I don't know if you'd have found too many clients for cleaning windows, but like did those two experiences sort of like complement each other at that time in terms of your journey?
Yeah, I think so. It was a strange start, I guess. I decided it was what I wanted to do, and I kind of used the paternity leave that I took when my son Baird was born. He was born October 2016, so I kind of had a couple of months off, but then we had Christmas, and that's usually a slow period, kind of January, after Christmas, January, February, quite a slow period with window cleaning. So I used that time looking around decided it was what I thought I could do, and found a couple of online courses. So I did a course through the University of the Arts in London, just an online course, in person. So that was online, but in person with a lecturer. And that was about 6 weeks. I think that's called Confident Copywriting. That took you through quite a lot of creative stuff. And it's like, yeah, this is great. I love it. Then kind of getting dropped off into trying to find clients. The way of running the businesses was fairly, what worked for one worked for the other.
Yeah.
In-person networking, creating relationships and trying to find clients the traditional way. That was all okay. The difference was with window cleaning, I had a really well-proven pricing structure. So when it came to pricing a job at nature, really, I'd go and look at a big office building and think, it's going to take this much time. I want to earn this much money, whatever. Really easy to quote. Whereas I found that difficult for pricing out content, pricing in my value, because I didn't perhaps understand it myself. And that's one of the first pieces of advice that a lot of people get given when they start working for themselves is, understand your value and how you can use it. That's quite a difficult concept to really understand. If you're starting out, to suddenly think, what is my value? It's not that easy to define. So I probably went down the same route that a lot of other people do when they go freelance, in that I picked up a couple of jobs. I found there was a web developer locally who I'd kind of known through the other business. He said, I can put you some content, but the rates were terrible. And I was allowing them to define my value. And I'll be honest, I did another couple of courses. I did a couple of online courses, and I did a sort of like a mentorship thing with two lovely ladies in Bristol, Sonia Nisson and Sharon Tanson, who ran a company called Valuable Content. And that was to help me try and define my target customer and really build out my business and my website to what I wanted it to be. But I probably went a little bit down the wrong route after that. I went down content marketing, trying to bring in things that I felt that I could do quickly. And I didn't really enjoy it. I'd get some work in. It still wouldn't be great money. And I didn't really enjoy some of the stuff I was writing.
What sort of stuff were you writing?
There's many blogs. I think I did a lot of blogs back in the day. Not so many landing pages, but kind of website pages and some SEO stuff as well. We had a little conversation about me having to download an app to get onto this stream. So I'm not the most technically advanced person in the world. And I reference that regularly on Barfield and McKinney. But yeah, so that kind of thing, I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't the kind of stuff I wanted to do. And the money wasn't great. So I was kind of thinking, I might as well be window cleaning here for what I'm learning. But when the pandemic came along, there was a point early on where I could still work window wise because it's all outside and stuff was on contracts and things. That was where I was going out to work. And I was like, I don't think that copywriting thing's worked. Maybe this is the point where I just think I gave it a good go. I made some good contacts and I tried to have fun doing it, but actually maybe this is the one thing that I need to focus on. And I kind of felt like that through the pandemic. And then coming out the other end, I think I just had one morning where I was sat down thinking, what am I going to do? And I think I felt that I'd put too much into it just to walk away straight away.
Yeah.
So I had a little plan. I had a bit of time kind of,
didn't we all
planning and stuff with work and thought,
yeah,
right, what would I really want it to look like? And that lent on then to just thinking I need to probably put myself out there with my personality a bit more. I always talk about on BNM, I always talk about I'm much better in person than online. So I just felt like I probably had to get my in-person personality online a little bit and try and generate some relationships and just see where they took me. So I'm glad I didn't give up, because that's led on to some really interesting things over the last couple of years, and especially Copy or Die with Dave. That's the main thing, really.
Yeah, I'm keen to sort of dive into that and talk about that a bit more. It's interesting that my inflection point was being made redundant. Like old bosses had always told me, like, you'd make more money, you'd be happier, you'd have more freedom, more control, like you should go freelance. But it's just always that, but I don't just want to go, okay, cheers, here's my P40, like here's my resignation letter, and then what? Sort of being made redundant sort of forced me into the shit, now what sort of territory. And I actually had two plan A's. So I was pursuing jobs, but we just had our second child. Like I got made redundant basically the week that my partner started maternity leave. Right. So it was literally like, so I put the green ring of like open to work on my profile, and I set to work like trying to build a business and all the rest of it. And I got very lucky in that an old boss and friend of mine chucked me a retainer for like 3 to 6 months. And that was kind of like the runway needed to frantically build. Like, what does accountancy look like? What's my onboarding like all of those things? Like, how am I actually going to go to market? How am I actually going to find clients? All of that. Like, I had a little bit of time and breathing space to like try and get that to work. Amazing. Which is, that's why I sort of asked you whether, having the other business at the time, like, just kind of gave you that little bit of runway, the little bit of time that you needed to sort of go into it. So it's interesting to say that.
Yeah, I think it definitely helped with what you're talking about there, like with onboarding a client, understanding how to present yourself and talk to somebody. Accountancy was all set up. So I'm basically one limited company with two parts. So I've got an accountant, accountant just deals with both. That probably won't be the case forever. I mean, not with Copy or Die. Copy or Die is now separate. But when I was a freelancer, I just ran my freelance business inside my window cleaning business, Clean Norfolk Limited. So that was really straightforward. Accountancy was all set up. The accountant was there giving me advice on doing bits and bobs. It's easy with Zero to set up, different revenue streams. If it was from one or from the other, we could keep track of it. Same with expenses. And then, no trouble with that. So that definitely gave me a head start, because I appreciate that if you've never run a business, then coming into it, like you say, what do you do? Do you have a business account, or do you just put stuff into your personal account? Who does your accounts? What is an accountant? How do you find one? Who do you find? And all that kind of thing. Yeah, I was lucky that I didn't really have to think too much about that at the start.
So we've mentioned Copy or Die a couple of times now, and your sort of collaborative thing with Dave. So I set up my own business and work on my own, and like the idea of having a partner, someone to bounce ideas off of and like work together with, just feels so appealing to me. Like I've gone out and tried to build a sort of similar kind of network or with other freelancers and stuff to try and fill that void. But I'm interested, like, how did you always want to go into partnership? Like, how did you meet Dave? Like, have you always been mates? And then whose idea was it to kind of come together and do something as a partnership? There's a lot of questions there, sorry.
So Dave and I met through the freelance community. So exactly like you're talking about, it's really lonely working on your own and being a freelancer. So we were both on, in those days, Twitter, not so much on LinkedIn, which is what everybody kind of does now, and where Dave's really well known. He's super known on LinkedIn. Yeah, but at the time we were both on Twitter and both kind of part of that extended freelance copywriter community. We just a couple of messages back and forth here or there, or comments on each other's posts. And then we met at a Copywriters Unite evening in London. That's probably, I don't know, that was like 2018, I think. That was run by Vicky Ross. Just met really briefly there, and not really mates at all, really, other than just keeping in touch and being friendly. And, we obviously had the same kind of, we would say we got the same kind of comedy, taste and everything. So we chuckle at the same jokes. When I decided I'm going to keep giving the writing a go, one of the ways of trying to get my personality out there was I decided I wanted to do like an interview series and some kind of thing where I met people and really leaned into the idea that one of my strengths as a freelancer was being able to run a business rather than do the work. And I was kind of at that point thinking, I like this, but I don't, to be honest, some of the more boring jobs, it would have been more interesting to be window cleaning. So what I didn't want to do was like lock into another 10 years or 15 years of me being the operative. That's what we'd call it in a window cleaning terms. But the person who just does the job, you know, I was getting to the point where I was thinking, actually, what I really want to do is run a business. And so I started this interview series, and I only did 2 in the end, but I interviewed Sophie Cross from Freelancer magazine around the time that Freelancer mag was launching. Mm-hmm. And I interviewed Dave because he was doing so well on LinkedIn, and we just had a chat. And one of the things he said during the interview, which I then put into it's not an audio interview, it's on my website. One of the things he said, I said, "What's next?" And he goes, "Oh, I need to try and get some revenue in or make some money from the stuff that doesn't pay me anything at the moment." So all of the stuff on LinkedIn, he was getting in loads of leads every month that he just didn't have the time to manage or to do anything with. And he said, "I'm just giving them away." I said, "Well, why don't you charge for them? You know, say that I've got this lead, charge a finder's fee or whatever, and sell it on. And then, you know, if somebody can make a job of it, everybody's happy." He's like, "Oh, who would buy them?" And then I didn't say it at the time, but afterwards I emailed and went, "I would buy them."
Yeah. I think there's plenty of people.
I've built a business on one side where I've set in place processes that then other people can follow. It shouldn't really be any different when it comes to copywriting. So he started passing me a couple of leads. I created a little sales process that would follow them up and try and nurture them and bring them to a sale. And if that happened, then I would pay Dave a percentage of that sale, of the value of the contract. And then from that, so I did the first couple myself, which was good, and realized I'm probably not in a position, I haven't got the time to do all this.
Yeah.
I didn't do a great job on the first couple. So after that, it was a case of, right, I need to use the freelance network that I've got to build a little team of people that I could think, if a certain job comes in, I can pass it to this person. If something different comes in, I can pass it to that person. So I started doing that. And Dave and I did that for only about a year, I think. And we would start, WhatsApping back and forth every time a lead came in. And I think we both joked at different points about, when we make this into an agency, it will be whatever. And then at some point, I can't remember who had the idea. Should we just meet in the middle? So Dave's over in Liverpool. Yeah. I'm on the East Coast in Norwich. And it was right, where can we meet in the middle? So we found a nice little hotel in Stamford, Lincolnshire. I drove across, he drove across, and we met up, had a couple of beers and just talked about what could become from it. So that was October 2022, I think. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, I think we could build this out. The process was in place. The leads were coming in. We had great people. So the nice thing about the freelance community that we're both part of is that there is incredible talent and incredible knowledge. And the one thing that people kind of are saying at the moment is we're struggling to get work in and to find work. So it was from one side of things, it was an opportunity for us to work together and formalize it and create different roles within a business. And on the other side of things, it was a nice opportunity to have almost, I don't want to call us a purpose-driven business, but it's a nice side of the business that we get to work with really, really good copywriters that we've become friends with and kind of pass out some of the work that way. So that's kind of like the origin story of it. We're just over a year on now. So we've kind of we still haven't done a proper full customer facing launch because a lot of the work does come in from LinkedIn and the activity we both do on there. Yeah, it's good. It's really working. Yeah. We weren't 100% sure what it could become. And we had really small ideas to start with. And over the year, we've kind of been thinking like, actually, we can have a bigger idea here. We can do something different here. We can make this bigger. Yeah. And it's really working well.
Yeah. I think most people listening to this will probably be aware of Dave and from his Confuse the Scammers stuff. Like all of his very personality, humor driven content and copy is obviously hugely effective. But I notice from you don't follow the same tact, but you're much more reserved, I think. Or certainly don't post as much as prolifically or whatever. Is that a conscious choice from you? Like, is there enough coming in from Dave, in terms of copy or die, or is it just how you? Because you talked earlier about wanting to get more of your offline personality online. So I'm just intrigued sort of where those kind of lines are drawn for you and how you kind of go about sort of doing that.
Yeah, it's funny because that was the goal, but I don't think I accomplished it. I don't think I've ever really I've never managed to find consistency when it comes to posting online. Yeah, I find it slightly tedious, like LinkedIn and all that kind of thing. I'm aware of what good things can come from it. And I'm really happy that Dave does all that stuff on there because
I bet.
It means I don't have to an extent. A big part of it is I don't really have the time. So even now, I can see in the future without kind of putting into concrete action plans, I can see in the future that the way Copy or Die is moving, at some point I'll have to make a decision as to either passing the management of the window cleaning over to somebody else or moving on that business, and really focusing in on Copy or Die. So my role in that is operations. Dave's the creative director. I'm like an operations director, for want of a better title. And so I'm involved in getting in those leads and nurturing them and making them into sales, and then setting the processes in place where other people can then come in. We can bring in a writer that does the work.
So just the two of you then at the moment?
Currently just the two of us, yeah. And then I've got a VA, and we use obviously freelance writers for almost exclusively all of the writing work. Yeah, in terms of getting stuff online, a part of it is I just don't have the time. And with having two businesses, we've got a young family, we've got a house renovation going on at the moment. It's just one of those things that sometimes gets done and sometimes
too much,
doesn't.
Ben. You're doing too much.
I'm not waving, I'm drowning. It's just, so I do this daft little thing called LinkedIn Lyrics, where I do a kind of take the mick out of LinkedIn in popular song lyrics on a Monday. It doesn't always happen on a Monday, it doesn't always get done. And initially it's like, I really need to focus on this. It's just one of those things that there isn't the time for at the moment, and I think I'm okay with it. I said this, we did Mel Barfield and I did a show on this on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago, where we were talking about how much you share online. Mel would describe herself as an oversharer. I am absolutely an undersharer, because I don't put anything about personal life or family on or anything. And I feel quite comfortable with it. But I am also aware that I'm probably missing out on some opportunities that could come from being a bit more interactive and a bit more open. But I guess it's just the way it is at the moment, and maybe that will change in the future.
Yeah, I guess so. I put out a post last week, I think, just in the last sort of 3 weeks. And I don't have two businesses, but I've got two small kids who are quite often poorly, as I'm sure you know, like going to nursery and preschool. And I try and commit to posting daily, but I think it's fairly obvious to anybody who's paying attention that, like, when things are really difficult here, like the quality and standard of stuff dips. And I maybe should commit to actually just focusing on doing fewer, more quality, but it sort of feels more pressing and imperative for me at the moment, at this point in my career, because I don't have a business partner with 100,000 followers who keeps bringing
that would be
in...
my advice to anybody, really.
Yeah.
If your wagon to somebody tremendously successful at social media.
Yeah,
I think it depends. Like, I don't know, what do you do? Do you only do LinkedIn, or do you do other stuff like
LinkedIn
Instagram
at the moment?
Yeah.
No, I haven't. I've not, just because my client base is typically B2B technology primarily.
Yeah,
and I'm sure that everybody is on Instagram and all the rest of it. I haven't got the bandwidth. I'm struggling with one to add another channel to that mix.
I think thinking back to what Twitter used to be like, it felt like with Twitter, there was no algorithm which pushed you up if you did certain things. So like with Twitter, you really could have this kind of like, oh, just fire this out. I'll fire this out. Because LinkedIn has almost like the rules in terms of post regularly, but don't post too frequently. And if you do post, then interact with the people that react with your post within a certain time frame. To me, those are I'm just the kind of person I am, man. Those kind of rules, I'm like, no, I'm not playing this game. I think with something like Twitter, where the way it used to be was you could just like drop in and drop out, and that suited me, and you could have these easy, quick conversations. Whereas with LinkedIn, it feels much more forced. And even look at Dave, look at Mel, who does really well on LinkedIn as well, and has this really nice kind of attitude and gives off her personality perfectly. How do you do it? I can't do it where it doesn't feel forced, and that's just me at the moment. Partly because I don't want to. I'm not, like I say, I'm not really interested in playing that game. But I also know that you can have great success and get really good clients and build your business in a certain way. The goal, I think, for Copy or Die is to not just build a business from LinkedIn. It's to have that as a channel which gives us some kind of leads and some kind of foothold, but also to build out a more traditional form of kind of bringing in business, whether that's in person, cold outreach, whatever. That's for the future. We're relying on LinkedIn at the moment, but I don't think it's something that we want to build a business that in 10 years we're still doing exactly the same thing, because the algorithm will change and people's habits will change as well. So it's working for now, but whether it will in the future, I don't know. And like I say, it's just something that I find personally a challenge.
Yeah, LinkedIn, there's don't know if you know the expression, but like LinkedIn social media, they're rented audiences. At any point, LinkedIn could go, right, we're gonna pull the plug, and then you'd be up shit creek. I certainly would. I'm interested in terms of Copy or Die. You talked about LinkedIn becoming just a channel. Have you and Dave talked about next steps? And I know obviously you're doing a couple of other bits, which we'll talk about in a minute, but I'm just interested to sort of think what the conversations you and Dave are having in terms of diversifying. You mentioned in-person events and stuff. Is that is that copy or die hosting, like, you know, like marketing meetup, or what does that look like? Have you had those chats?
Not massively. We're right in the middle of kind of just establishing ourselves and making sure that the leads keep coming in and that we're successful in getting those jobs. I think we both, certainly for me, the one reason about being so excited about having Copy or Die is I felt like I needed some kind of vehicle where it wasn't just, so this does go back to talking about, you know, being on LinkedIn and being on social media in a personal capacity, but actually having a little vehicle where it's not my face that people are interacting with and it's not my personality, but they're kind of interacting with with a company or with a little vehicle of ours that we can do different things, whether that's publishing stuff or something like in-person events. We've got loads. We're both really full of ideas. It's just trying to slow down and focus on the kind of the here and now and get through the first year and then see where we can build from. But yeah, we've got definitely loads of things we'd love to do in the future. I think it's in the initial case, it's about building a business that doesn't require us to be absolutely, full on head in our computer every day, just trying to do the day-to-day stuff. It's building a proper sustainable business that we can then, have an overview and say, right, we're going to take it this way now. So that's the initial goal anyway.
And I have to ask, actually, I probably should have asked, and I think Dave may have gone into the naming choice on Giles's podcast when he was on there a few months back, but whose choice was Copy or Die?
That was definitely Dave. Yeah, we bounced around a few ideas. I think, I've got to be honest, I think it was pretty much the first thing he came up with on the drive home from Stanford. So after we'd had this, we just had a couple of days, took ourselves away for a couple of days to this hotel, basically had some really nice food and had a couple of beers and sort of just chit-chatted about what it could be. And then on the drive home, I think I got a WhatsApp from him and said, what about this? And we went round and round with a couple of different options. I don't think we probably only came up with like 5 or 6 that we felt were relevant. One was already taken. And then, Copy or Die just stuck around. That was the one that really stuck in our heads as being something that could be different. Because the whole point of the agency was, if we were going to make it into an agency, was what type of other copywriting agencies are out there. And there's not loads. And the ones that are kind of tend to focus on content. Most creative agencies will have a copy arm within themselves. So in terms of pure copywriting agencies, we wanted to be different. We wanted to have something that would capture attention and stand out and show a bit of personality. And we'd not, like I say, we've not even launched our website yet. We've not kind of got properly public facing.
I just
there, is it?
Yeah, just there. Yeah,
it's a big blank screen. But that should be soon. I think we're pretty much down to the last little bits and bobs before it does launch. But we wanted it to be different. We wanted it to stand out and not just be a fairly standard, boring kind of way. We wanted to kind of walk the walk and talk the talk. We're all about putting personality into copy and to doing the things for businesses that, really make them stand out and be utterly themselves. And we have to start with us doing that as well. So
yeah, the name of my business is Plume Content was just purely plucked at a moment of panic, but I'm going to reduce that to just Plume going forward because
that's a good one.
Yeah, I think it's quite nice. But I'm always interested how people come up with interesting names.
It's one of those things that you could spend forever on, and it's probably not the most important. It's the kind of thing that you would almost like obsess over. And actually what you need to be doing is establishing yourself and getting some work in. And then once you've done that, maybe something jumps out and you think, now I can, shift over and rebrand or do whatever. Maybe you don't. It's one of those things that it's the kind of the small stuff that you don't need to sweat, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's when I first started, it's another one of those things. There's just so many choices, so many little tasks and little bits and bobs that you have to do, from getting yourself set up on Company's House to finding an accountant, like just all of the things, like getting a website and all of that kind of stuff. And the name is literally probably the least important, but probably the bit that gets the most amount of time, I'd imagine. From people.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I quite like all that initial setup bit, but it is much easier when you're not having to do all of the work alongside it. So you have my sympathies of all the setup.
So let's move on to that, where I sort of came into contact with you. It almost sounds a bit creepy, but I don't mean it like so. But where I first sort of encountered you on the kind of Barfield and McKinney audio events that you're doing on LinkedIn. Like, can you talk me through what was the thinking behind that? What was because considering you've sort of talked about not necessarily wanting to be super out there on LinkedIn and not wanting to play their game, yet there you are doing a regular audio event on the platform. So I'm trying to square that circle, I guess.
Yeah, I think that goes back to wanting to show some real life offline personality online, and it felt like a comfortable way of doing it, again with a co-host or with a partner, not doing it on my own. It's not just my face that's out there. Mel and I had worked together on a couple of projects, probably going back a good couple of years. She did a couple of those early leads from Dave where it was just me. we worked together on those and it went really well. Just became good mates and, firing opinions and WhatsApp messages back and forth, loads of voice notes. She loves a voice note. Yeah. So that turned into just like, this is almost podcast, but some of it, this is really big headed, but kind of thinking actually that would be quite interesting for people to hear. We could talk about this. She's great online. She does loads of stuff on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. It was the easiest way. So we talked about doing a podcast, and I appreciate that I'm talking to you on your podcast, which is
very meta.
Must be an awful lot of work to get set up and get running and everything, and do it really professionally. So doing the LinkedIn lives, again, being really busy. Mel's got 2 young kids as well, so both really busy. How are we going to find the time to put this in a podcast? And would anybody listen? We haven't got an audience. How do we get anybody to do we just start it? And actually the easiest way of doing it was the LinkedIn Live. It's free. We can promote it on LinkedIn. It gives me a reason to be on LinkedIn because I have to promote it. And it's it's instant feedback, and it's not permanent. So that's quite nice in terms of when you're cutting your teeth of getting your voice out there. If we did an episode where we'd made a mistake or something in the middle of it, I think in the first one we ran, my mic stopped working for a couple of minutes, and Mel's had one where she's dropped offline for a couple of minutes. So in terms of that, it kind of puts you on the spot to talk to people and get that instant feedback, and you actually see instantly whether you've got an audience and whether people are enjoying what you're doing. So yeah, it was probably a collaborative idea, and just in terms of dipping the toe in the water to maybe think about doing something like a podcast in the future. But it's really enjoyable. I'm kind of surprised at how much I've enjoyed it and how easy it's become to make time for it, because I am super busy. I've got loads of things on, like, could I do this week? No, I'll put it back. Whereas actually when we're talking about when are we going to do the next show, it's become one of the first things that I tend to put into that particular week. We only do one every couple of weeks. It's not absolutely regular at the moment. It's just kind of every 2 or 3 weeks. We've got the Easter holidays coming up. There's not one in 2 weeks, it's 3 weeks. And it's just, that's fine. We put it out, promote it on LinkedIn. And we've got a lovely little, we haven't got a community by any means, but we've got a really nice some regulars that come every week, every show and kind of interact with us.
Yeah, I'd say, you say that's not a community, but that definitely is like the startings of a community. And then you've got your Substack as well that you use to kind of promote and give those things away. So what else are you doing on the Substack as well as, so you put the recordings on there, I believe?
Yeah, so subscribers get a written roundup of the show that we've just done, and the odd little bit of news. We certainly don't bombard people with stuff. And then we have got a few amazing paid subscribers who are incredibly generous. It was something we never thought would come. We got a couple of alerts one day saying people had donated a bit of money to the show. So for them, we try and record it, and we're going to use the money that we've got in from those paid subscribers to try and build out what could be a proper podcast, and then actually create some content specifically for those paid subscribers. So it's really early days.
That's cool.
But the Substack's good. It's a nice way of following up, because the big problem with the LinkedIn Live audio is that you can't record it. I've tried just doing like a screen recording on Mac, and it's not great sound quality. So while we do have a little recording that we can kind of reference back to if we need to, actually it's not great. And that's kind of like where we could see an improvement being made, because that's the one thing that people say is, I can't make this week's, will it be recorded? And the answer is no, unfortunately, not to any decent standard. So yeah, that's kind of like the next step, is working out how we could make it something a bit more permanent and maybe put that in proper podcast format that could then be a nice little useful resource. Because we try and, as you know, from being on listening, we try and have a theme each week that's to do with freelancing, and then try and come away with some good actionable points by the end of it. Although what we normally find is that we kind of meet in the middle, and there's not really a right way of doing anything. It depends on you.
Yeah, it's the classic marketing answer, right? Like, it depends. Yeah, inevitable. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, like, you and Dave are speaking at, and Mal's badgered me into getting a ticket, so I'm actually going to meet you in person next
brilliant
month. So you're talking at You Are the Media Creator Day. So I'm going into this with an open mind, and I've heard some various bits and pieces about the event and how it's quite different to other kind of networking events, and I believe that there's a world record attempt for the most hugs. I think that's something that Mark Masters is the guy who organises it and runs it and has been doing for a while now, and I believe that's one of his things. So I'm intrigued to hear from you, because obviously you're speaking now, and I'm guessing you've been going for a little while, so I'll get a little bit of insight as to what you're talking about, and a bit about the event as well, I guess.
Yeah, so actually this will be my first in-person You Are the Media event. So for anybody that doesn't know, You Are the Media is a marketing community run by Mark Masters. Mark's based in Bournemouth, and I'm over in Norwich, so I don't ever get over to any of the little events. But he does loads. So for local people, he runs things like lunch clubs and kind of co-work sessions in person. I've been a subscriber to Mark's email for probably 4 or 5 years, I think, just before the pandemic. And then coming out of the pandemic, he started a little kind of not exclusive, but a paid club where, a membership club where you can get support and you've got a nice little community to bounce off. So I joined that coming out of the pandemic, and I've really enjoyed being a part of it. It's one of those things that I'm not sniffy about communities, but often I often think with communities, especially if they're run by one person, almost like the purpose-based aspect of it outweighs what you actually get from it, if that makes sense. That sounds terrible. Makes me sound like a terrible, cynical person. But
it's true, though.
The thing that Mark is great at is turning the light back on the members. So it's not all about him in the group. It's about the experience of the community. And if you've got a problem with running your business, or you've got a question that you're not sure of, the answer doesn't come from Mark always. It comes from within the community, and he's a great connector of people. So he started running the Creator Day. I think this is the third one, and the reason I'm going is because I've been asked to speak, but I was planning on going anyway, because unlike a standard conference where you might go and sit in an audience and listen to talks all day, it's more of a collaborative experience. There's, as you mentioned, this world record attempt for hugs, but there's also the name Creator Day references that as a group we'll break off into smaller groups and try and create something together that is based around your own business. So if you're somebody that's thinking, I'd like to dip my toe into video, I'd like to try my hand at recording my voice and putting something out there, I'd like to write something specific, you become in a little group where you actually start that process and bounce ideas off people and then have something to work towards afterwards. So it feels like a really nice day. It's going to be by the seaside. There's a community swim the following morning, so any hangovers can get washed away. Come on, you can do it.
No, well, because I've got to get home for the children's bedtime. I can get a pass out for the day, but bedtime with R2 is impossible. I understand. Four hands.
My wife is under no illusions that this is a lovely little jolly. I'm away for 2 nights. 'Cause it's such a long way to go. I'm away for 2 nights, so I'll travel down on the Wednesday, and then I'll stay until Friday and head back Friday afternoon. But she's like, "You're really just going for a jolly, aren't you?" I was like, "Well,
there's definitely an aspect to it." I need to add some stuff into the show notes. Is there anything else that you want to actively promote or sort of shout out that perhaps we haven't covered? I'll put links to like the Barfield and McKinney stuff.
So the website for Copy or Die will be up soon. If you're a writer that thinks, I'd love to work with Ben and Dave on a project, you can go to copyorDie.co.uk/writers. It's the only web page that we've got live, and there's a little type form on there. You can just tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll add you to our list. And then with Barfield and McKinney, if you think you'd like to subscribe to the Substack and get alerts as to when the shows are and what the shows are about, that's barfieldandmckinney.substack.com.
Awesome, and I'll make sure to add those links to the show notes. But Ben, thank you so much.
Just for Mark, I think there are still tickets to Creator Day. So if anybody fancies coming down to Bournemouth, they're still available. That's creatorday.uk, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'll double check and make sure that's in the show notes as well. But nice one. Thank you, Ben, for speaking to me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's lovely to meet you, Dan. See you in person in a month or so.
Yeah. Cheers, mate. Bye bye.